Hello everyone, I'm day weather meteorologist Don Day with your Public Lands Council weekly weather update for this April 8th, 2023. It's being brought to you by Ag Risk Advisors and WSR Insurance Services Incorporated. Well, as we all know, in the northern and western areas of the U.S., a lot of winter weather over the last 6 weeks. This past week brought a record-breaking snowstorm to parts of Wyoming, South Dakota, and far northwest areas of Nebraska. Heading up through the Dakotas and up into the upper plains states, we had as much as 4 to 5 feet of snow in parts of Wyoming, a couple of feet of snow elsewhere across some of the western high plains. But the break that everyone is waiting for, especially anyone in calving and lambing operations, well, we finally got a break. It's been rough for the last several weeks and especially this past week, but a needed break of much warmer, less stormy weather for a short period of time will be developing across the northern plains, throughout the Rockies, and most of the far west. Much warmer temperatures will be increasing snow melt from the Rockies to the northern plains, so we'll be talking in the weeks ahead about some concerns for flooding as we finally get into some warmer weather. And now that these days are longer and the nights are warmer, we'll get into a cycle here later in this month where snowmelt will be a 24-hour occurrence. Now, there is a return of some colder, unsettled weather late next week and next weekend. So by late next week and next weekend, there is a rain snow threat again. Details are a little bit sketchy. So we've got a 5 or 6 day period of good weather. After that, we may be looking at another storm system. Taking a look at the last week, you can see that heavy precipitation across South Dakota, Wyoming, parts of North Dakota into Minnesota there, really focusing its attention in this area right here. Huge amounts of snow also reported in Utah and the far northern mountains of Colorado with this storm. This continues to be an area of concern right here, eastern Colorado, Kansas, a lot of Oklahoma, Texas, and eastern New Mexico. This area right here in particular just keeps missing these spring storms. And this last one, while hitting these areas to the north, missing this area right here. And this is the last 2 weeks of snowfall. Pretty impressive. Here we are 8 days into the month of April, and snow is still falling at some fairly far south latitudes as we get deeper in the spring. And then you can see the bullseye of the bigger snows right here in the last couple of weeks, with the Sierras and the Cascades still getting the snowfall as well. You can really see the reflection of how it's gone, where the drought monitor is showing the drought conditions still. Really need precipitation in this area here. Now, the drought has definitely improved significantly in many areas over the past year and over the winter season. But these central and southern plains need to get into the action. And I do think as we go through April and into May, this particular area will get into some rains and maybe some wet snows. Let's keep our fingers crossed, but at least for another 5 or 6 days or so, that's not going to happen. Because as we go through this weekend, a westerly flow across the U.S. means generally mild conditions. There'll be a little bit of shower activity in this area here this weekend, but not a lot. The most wet weather will be along the Gulf Coast in the southeastern United States with quite a bit of rain and thunderstorm activity. But up here, we still have stormy weather in the Gulf of Alaska. And as long as this area here continues to have cold, low pressure, there will be the chance that these storms will come off the Pacific and through the west. That's why we're not out of the woods yet, because this is by late next week. We may have another area of low pressure move through the northern Rockies and northern plains, bringing colder weather and rain and snow. So while we're going to have some spring-like weather coming on up, doesn't mean we're done with cold wintry conditions this yet. But certainly the really cold March we had, the really cold first week of April, that certainly is going to be easing some. So it's a double-edged sword. You still want to get spring precipitation, but you don't want to go through what we just did in many areas over the past week. Now, the forecast over the next 10 days continues to show where we may have that heavier precipitation again, maybe focusing on the northern areas once again. But I will tell you, the track of the storm is showing the potential that this area could get into some rain and thunderstorm activity mid to late next week. We're hoping that maybe this area will fill in with some rain chances. We'll see. I think the possibility is there that could happen. And here's the snowfall forecast for the next week. So we're still not out of the woods yet, as snowfall could still be in our future depending on how the storm late next week and next weekend develops. Have yourself a good weekend and a good week ahead. See you next week.